Good morning. I want to thank everybody for joining us. It's Olga Atamanova, Media Center of Ukraine. Ukrinform continues its operation. It's day 252 of the heroic resistance of the Ukrainian people. And now we will be talking about our Ukrainian energy supplies, power supply systems. Joining us is Mr. Alexander Harshenko, Director at the Energy Industry Research Center. Good morning. Good morning. Mr. Alexander, President of Ukraine recently mentioned that about 40% of Ukrainian power grid is damaged. What are the challenges that we are facing for renewal of this mitigation of this damage? Let's understand first what the president was talking about. He was talking about the level of the damaged equipment in the power grid, and this figure is changing every day. So that the facilities are being renewed on a daily basis, but there is a new wave of strikes and new damages, new installations destroyed, so it's very difficult to record some specific figure which would tell us about the level of the general damage around the system, but it's generally around 35–40%. The latest attack, which took place traditionally on Monday, was quite massive, and it was more massive than the attack on the 10th of October. But on the other hand, both the Ukrainian power grid better understands the way to counter these strikes, and on the other hand, our counter rocket systems work better and better. But still we have to mention some substantial damage. The Moscovian occupants changed their tactics a little bit. They started paying more attention. They started to focus more on the objects, on the power generating objects, so they don't try to damage the hydraulic power plants, for example. They don't try to hit the dams or turbines. Those are very well protected installations, and with 2 or 3 or 5 rockets it's quite difficult to damage them. So they focus more on the power supply infrastructure, transformation stations, which give the power from the generating stations. So it complicates our work in terms of transportation of the electric power. There are certain damages, there are destroyed installations, but the brigades are working on repairing of those installations. Kyiv has felt it recently, Dnipro felt it recently to a very significant extent. We need about 12–15 hours to reestablish the power supply, because some of the installations are completely destroyed and time is necessary to reestablish power supply. There was, Mr. Alexander, there was a statement by DTEK that they run out of the reserves of helping us with the repair of the power supply systems, but there are statements from a large number of countries who are ready to join to contribute to our energy security, to contribute to the repair which are needed by our country. Can you please comment on this? Let's first say that many countries started helping us way before this statement was issued, and before 10th of October we were in dialogue with many partners as to the renewal of the energy infrastructure, and it's quite understood that this dialogue became more intense after 10th of October. We have instances when the German energy technicians, they go on vacation to take the equipment and bring it to the border of Ukraine. So we feel very powerful support from our colleagues in Europe. We feel the support of our colleagues from Baltic countries and Poland, who do some unprecedented work, and Germany, who support our energy infrastructure to a very significant extent, and a lot of other countries as well. At the same time, I want to tell you straight that these attacks at the political level, they, so to say, increase the temperature of the tension. And the Commissioner for Energy, Kadri Simpson, visited Kiev yesterday, and there were negotiations as to the support in the energy field. I know about the support of our colleagues from United States and other European countries who come to Ukraine questioning what kind of help we need to and how quickly they can provide it. So it's a very active work, and we need to thank our partners. They don't just sit around and see what's going on, but they try to the maximum extent reinforce Ukrainian power supply system. Yesterday we had a new term, energetic Rammstein. We heard it from the president. To what extent this energy Rammstein can work? To how quickly can we get help? Well, honestly, I will tell you, I'm not a fan of some great events under the situation when the work is going on a daily basis. The dialogue with all key energy supply companies and equipment manufacturing companies, the dialogue is in progress. It's technically complicated. Those are not political things. It's, for example, Ukraine uses 750 kilovolt lines. Those are powerful lines for transportation of power, and Europe doesn't use them. And Europe doesn't use some types of equipment, like the most powerful are 400 kilovolts, for example. So those types of equipment are necessary to be need to be negotiated with the colleagues from South Korea, for example, and this dialogue is very active. And this energy Rammstein, it exists already. It's not focused in some specific place like it was in the military base in Rammstein, but it's active and it's in progress, and it works. Another term used recently very frequently is blackout. Do we have a plan for these blackouts? What needs to be done by the state and by the citizens in these terms? Well, many people don't understand the term blackout. In English system of events, blackout is full power grid shutdown because it becomes uncontrollable, and the processes start that are out of control of the human personnel, and there are a lot of emergencies on the power generating equipment and energy transporting equipment. It's the breakdown of the frequencies, and it's a like consequence of different events when things go out of control. Our system is 100% controllable, and the shutdowns which happen, they have nothing to do with the blackout. It's just that journalists like this word. I understand them, but it's not blackout. It's intended shutdown. For example, when there is a strike on the certain piece of equipment, in certain area, it's the emergency shutdown. It's either an emergency shutdown or it's a controlled shutdown. When we fully understand, it's not like there is a plan B and plan C. It's the plan written down all the way to letter K. For example, we have a plan in case of strikes on different objects of the infrastructure, and those plans are known to the dispatchers who work on a daily basis, and part of the personnel, they work with their hands, and the other part of employees, they work on developing these type of plans. which we used in different areas in Ukraine where we are under threat of shutdowns for significant periods, but we were finding solutions and got those areas reconnected to the grid within like 5 to 6 hours. So the planning is in progress all the time, and the engineers and dispatchers, they squeeze maximum out of the system to make it controllable to the most extent possible with the shutdowns and repairing. Dear colleagues, your questions. Victoria Naknechna, Ukrinform, the military governor of Kyiv region, stated there might be a situation when Kyiv and Kyiv region may end up without power for like 2 weeks. How probable is this? You know, everything is probable when you have missiles flying at you in amount of 50 or 60 pieces. But I believe that at the level of the control that we have now with the horizon of 2 to 3 waves of attacks, I don't see such perspective. Some trader companies started testing the import of electric power from European Union, how it may improve the situation with power supply, or the problem is more on the side of the transportation system. Yes, we have issues with the transportation systems, but first of all, import in certain situations may be useful for the regions which are connected to the European grid. We have the import window, we have opportunity, we have these options of importing electric power. It's just that we did not request this previously, but in my opinion, in situation when rockets fly to the logistic energy generating centers, for example, like Pavlograd, where the vast majority of Ukrainian coal is being mined, I would look at this option of import to save coal, for example, because we have good reserves, but they are not fantastic. We have about 5 to 6 tons, and certain economy under conditions when we cannot forecast the development of events. I think it would be feasible to consider this option. Mr. Alexander, we know that we switched to European power grid, that we are connected to it. The shutdowns, the damages, do they influence the operation of the system in whole, and do they unbalance it? Well, let's put it this way. It was one of the first steps taken. We calculated in what way it could influence the European system because we are fully connected to it. But we don't influence in any negative way on the European system. Good news. What about our citizens? We know that we are in the mode of total economy. Do you have any advice so we understand that we need to keep the lights switched off? But in case we face the shutdown not for 1 day but for several days, what should we do? Honestly, in the situation when the long shutdowns are possible, specifically during the period of coming heating season, it's understood that I get a lot of these questions. People who communicate with me, they just call me and they ask me what to do. For example, in case if you have a private house, the universal reply is power generator. All the ideas about solar batteries, which won't help you in the night, and second, solar battery plus the battery when there is no sun and the weather is clouded. Under these conditions, when we have to recognize the prices for generators are speculative, still generators are cheaper of whatever type, diesel, gas generator, whatsoever. If you live in an apartment in a big city, the best option is like there's a lot of advertising now, but the universal solution is inverter 12 to 24, which enables you to take just a regular car battery, maybe 1, 2, depending on the number you would be able to procure, and you can get power from this battery more than from any UPS, and it's thrice cheaper than the combination bought at any epicenter or any other specialized store. Then, to be realistic, if for example, I personally live in a house and I had power generator before as the person who works in energy field, but in case of apartment, the solution is inverter with 1 or 2 power batteries, which can maintain your comfort for like 4 to 6 hours. Not like in terms of electric teapot or electric oven. Thank you for this advice. We have more questions.
Of Sankei newspaper, Japan. One thing, are there any support offered by Japanese government or company after 10th of October?
Really, we extremely appreciate support from Japanese government, because it was one of first government which sent own support to Ukrainian energy companies. And your embassy was extremely proactive, and I know that first support from foreign partners was from Japan and from Poland, technically. That's one more time thank you, and I know that Japanese government working for extended package to even to bigger support to our energy infrastructure. We really appreciate this position.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Alexander. I will remind you, we had Alexander Harchenko with you, the director of the Energy Research Institute. Our next briefing is at 1300. I will remind you, we will have the representatives of the expert council of the Ministry of Culture and Information Policy on overcoming of the consequences of Russification and totalitarianism. Bear with us. Glory to Ukraine.